Coming up, Trump's masterful deportation mission. The Democrats are race hustling again, and the US Navy attacks Houthis, and Democrat infighting continues. Look at the Trump administration's masterful plan to deport criminal aliens before the courts could stop them.
This morning, hundreds of alleged Venezuelan gang members are waking up in prison in El Salvador after the Trump administration rapidly deported them, ignoring a federal judge's directive. That federal judge, in an emergency hearing Saturday, ordered any plane containing these folks that is going to take off or is in the air needs to be returned to the United States, adding this is something that you need to make sure is complied with immediately. The two planes already in the air, sources tell us the administration made the calculated decision to ignore that directive. Sources say the planes carrying the alleged gang members took off during the hearing, the administration eager to get them in the air out of U.S. airspace and over international waters before the judge's ruling. In response to that order to turn the planes around, the president of El Salvador, a Trump ally, posting, "Oopsie, too late."
They needed to be brought back, and the judge absolutely had authority to do that.
The Trump administration knew that the ACLU or like organization would try to go about preventing the shipping of these illegal immigrants, criminal immigrants, back. They knew that they would be judge shopping, choosing one of the 300 federal judges that they suspected and probably knew would be sympathetic to their cause. But the Trump administration used masterful tactics to get around this. They put them onto planes in the dead of night to get them out of US airspace before a judgment could effectively hit the table, so to speak. There's been all sorts of legal wrangling, and of course the ACLU lawyer thinks that they should have been brought back regardless. For a look at the legal situation, CNN's Ellie Honig has a look, and Honig is no friend of the Trump administration.
Defy a court order, whether it was verbal or written, doesn't matter, correct?
Well, Sarah, they came right close to the line and maybe over it. And let me tell you the specific details that we need to know in order to make this determination. At the moment the judge gave the order, he said in court on Saturday afternoon, I want you to not fly anyone out of here, or if the flights are already in the air, I want you to turn them around. At that very moment, where were the airplanes? If they were on the ground in the United States, then yes, there was a defiance of the order. If they had already landed in El Salvador, then no, there was no defiance of the order. It was already too late. If they were mid-flight, then we get into questions of where were they? Were they over American territory or international waters? And that's some gray area. That may give the Trump administration something to hang their hat on. But I want to make this point also. It doesn't matter when the written opinion came out from the judge. What matters is the moment when the judge says it in court. I've seen the Trump administration say, well, the written order came out a few hours later. Anyone who's practiced in federal court will tell you when the judge says it from the bench, that is law.
Honig paints the picture, and forgetting about being on land one side or another, his view is that it's where the flights happen to be, in what airspace, that is going to be the determining factor on whether potentially the Supreme Court rules against the Trump administration on this. But the fact is the two aircraft were not over US territory when that judgment came in. The federal judge, quite frankly, does not have jurisdiction over international territory or over another nation's airspace. This will likely go to the Supreme Court. To have one of 300 federal judges, handpicked by plaintiffs, exercising control over international territory is beyond the pale. If you enjoy this content, please like, share and subscribe. And then we have Byron Donalds talking about the casual and not so casual racism that is inherent in the Democrat Party.
Well, why do the media and the left treat black Democrats so differently and so much better than they do black Republicans?
The reason why is because we don't fit the narrative that the media has been trying to sell people in our country, that the Democrat Party is the only home for black people. That's simply not true, simply not the case. As a matter of fact, black people are actually more conservative than the Democrat Party is. So when you see a Mia Love or you see a Tim Scott or you see myself and so many others come along, they have to vilify us. They have to demonize us.
Donald says that black conservatives run completely counter to the Democrat and media narrative. And we know the truth of that. The media, therefore, has to vilify and demonize blacks that happen to be conservative. This is a ludicrous position to take, given that the Democrats have always been the party of race. Indeed, they were the founders of the Ku Klux Klan. And yet we see so many more instances even these days of racism with the Democrats. And just to demonstrate the veracity of Donald's statement, along comes Don Lemon.
It's the same thing that when I see not all black Republicans, but I see a black MAGA person who is carrying Donald Trump's water and they know that he's lying, it is the shortest line to the front. Because if you're black and you're whatever, you're just in line with a bunch of other Democrats that are doing the same thing that you're doing. But if you become a black MAGA person, it's like, whoa, let's book this person, let's put him on television.
So you don't think you can be a sincere black MAGA person?
No, I just said, I don't think that, I just said, I think there can be sincere Republicans.
But you can't be a sincere black Republican?
I don't think that you can be a rational MAGA, be black and be a rational MAGA person. I think you can be black and be a Republican.
I think they would find that very insulting.
Well, I mean, the truth is often insulting.
So, Lemon thinks that you can't be a rational black person and support MAGA. He thinks that you are just out there if you're a black and you support MAGA. These racist and elitist Democrats just do not stop. Think about it. Think about statements like deplorable, a basket full of deplorables, flyover country. And then you had Biden's, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. And now this nonsense. How do they think that they can win by insulting so many of their potential voters? Their sense of moral superiority, quite frankly, is absolutely disgusting. And there's so many examples. Joy Reid, Don Lemon, and the list goes on. The problem is that they are so racist themselves and yet throw around the term racist with gay abandon that the word racist, which should actually have a lot of power, has lost almost all of the power that it used to have at one stage. And then we have race baiter Al Sharpton, but not in this case talking about that, and Senator Sheldon Whitehouse on Doge.
Do you get the sense that many voters are getting fed up with the chaos being caused by President Trump so far in his second term?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think polling numbers show it. And I think the fact that Republicans can't go and have a town hall themselves any longer because they've angered their constituents so much also shows it. People, I think, are fed up with this. And the danger to Social Security, I think, is very real. You know, watch that carefully. Trump lies. And one of his lies is that he won't touch Social Security. But he sent in Musk and those doggy boys, the muskrats, to wreck up stuff in Social Security. And the former commissioner, Governor O'Malley, says that the wreckage that they're doing will lead to interruptions in benefits. And at that point, he comes in and says, oh, look, I broke Social Security. We have an emergency. Let's fix it. Let's get the private equity people and the big data people in here to run Social Security.
Once again, from Sheldon Whitehouse, just like all Democrats, we get their lines. And this time we get the town hall rhetoric again, where we know that the Democrats are flooding town halls with unfriendly Democrat-supporting people to cause problems at those Republican town halls. And then we get Social Security lies from Whitehouse, where he says that Donald Trump is not telling the truth about not adversely impacting on Social Security. He says that Trump is lying, And more than that, he believes that this is some sort of nefarious scheme to privatise Social Security. And then he brings in Mark O'Malley, who was head of Social Security, of course a Democrat, who talks about Doge and Social Security privatisation. He would say that, wouldn't he? And then we have discussion on MSNBC's Morning Joe about the Democrats' terrible polling.
Lie about Social Security and say that we're giving benefits to people who are 160 years old or to their grandchildren. We allowed Elon Musk to go on television and tell everybody that we're using Social Security as a lure to bring people into the country illegally, that we're giving them benefits, which we're not. We're giving them to illegal people in the country who came in illegally. We give it to them. Lie after lie after lie, and said nothing. I'll tell you, James Carville, who said the Democrats should stay silent, may be partially right, but where he's wrong is you have to have a fact checker. There needs to be a war room. Remember in 1992? Yeah. Remember how Bill Clinton won that election because he had a war room. He and George Stephanopoulos were down there in Little Rock, and they were checking every fact, and nobody checks the facts anymore. And the lies are getting through to the American people.
They are. You can, I sitting at a baseball game, I could hear them. Those people who were fired, they're actually sitting pretty, being given great packages. Those Doge cuts are the best thing that ever happened to them. Things like that they read somewhere.
Yeah. They did research.
Right. Their research on the Epic Times or whatever it is. So,
of course, with MSNBC, the story is that the reason for the dismal polling, only 29% favourable to the Democrats and 54% unfavourable, is Republican lies. Couldn't it possibly be because the Democrats are in such disarray? Also, of course, according to them, anything that the Republicans say is a lie. And these lies are what is causing the bad polling with the Democrats. Really? Well, why can't the Democrats prosecute the argument, show where the lies are, etc., in a way that actually convinces people that they're right? It's because they're incompetent. And then we have the typical sneering elitist attitude from Brzezinski about sources like Epic Times, as if MSNBC is a paragon of unbiased reporting. And on the issue of fact checkers, sorry, we've seen what the fact checkers are like. They are nothing like fact checkers. You only need to see how they behaved during COVID to see that they are just partisan hacks pushing a narrative rather than checking facts. And then we have more of the civil war in the Democrats.
What's your response to Senator Fetterman?
He's not the one to talk about anything. This is a guy that doesn't seemingly want to own a suit. I'm not really sure. But I don't show up in hoodies when I'm going on the floor. That we were not on the House floor jumping around at all, whereas Senator Fetterman is consistently walking around the Senate chamber, and he is walking around in such a way that they literally had to change the rules in the Senate so that he could walk around that way. So I just don't think that he's necessarily the one to actually have an opinion about this.
Fetterman is critical of the stupid games and circus performances that the Democrats are resorting to at the moment. What do we have in terms of a comeback from Crockett? It certainly isn't to talk about substance. No, it's about Fetterman's appearance, what he wears, and quite frankly, that serves to exactly make Fetterman's point. There is no substance at all. No wonder they are in such disarray. Then we have Pete Hegseth on hitting the Houthis hard.
By the way, to the Houthis, this isn't a one-night thing. This will continue until you say we're done shooting at ships, we're done shooting at assets. We don't want a long, limited war in the Middle East. We don't care what happens in the Yemeni civil war. This is about stopping the shooting at assets in that critical waterway to reopen freedom of navigation, which is a core national interest of the United States. And Iran has been enabling the Houthis for far too long. They better back off.
Hegseth points out that there is going to be No more pitter-patter little game playing with the Houthis, where before if the Houthis fired, then the Americans would hit with a retaliatory response on that side. No, they're going to be far more general attacks on the Houthis to take them out of the business of attacking shipping. America has provided global security, protecting sea lanes of communication since World War II. And quite frankly, this is something that is not recognised anywhere near enough globally, and particularly by the West. This has cost the Americans a lot of money. The Houthis aren't playing their civil war game internally. They're taking on the US and attacking international shipping in the Red Sea, clearly following Iran's orders. This has got to stop, and Hegseth has made clear that that is going to be the case from here on in. And then we get the Houthi equivalent of Baghdad Bob going on an anti-American rant.
شن العدو الأمريكي عدوانا سافرا على بلدنا خلال الساعات الماضية بأكثر من 47 غارة جوية استهدفت مناطق عدة في محافظات صنعاء وصعدة والبيضاء وحجة وذمار ومارب والجوف. وارتكب العدو الأمريكي عددا من المجازر، حيث أدى هذا العدوان إلى استشهاد وجرح العشرات في حصيلة غير نهائية. وردا على هذا العدوان نفذت القوات المسلحة بعون الله تعالى عملية عسكرية نوعية استهدفت من خلالها حاملة الطائرات الأمريكية USS هاري ترومان والقطع الحربية التابعة لها شمالي البحر الأحمر، وذلك ب18 صاروخا باليستيا ومجنحا وطائرة مسيرة في عملية مشتركة نفذتها القوة الصاروخية وكذلك سلاح الجو المسير والقوات البحرية.
Why do these idiots feel the need to shout? Sometimes the most impactful way of speaking is talking about things softly. The reality is, shouting is all the Houthis really have. And the attack that he talked about did no damage whatsoever. However, they do need to be stopped because they're impacting on international trade. Now, what do you think about the masterful strategic deportation of criminal illegal aliens by the Trump administration? Please let me know in the comments below. And thanks for watching.